The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
It's time to go on the mat. The Cedar Valley's longest-running radio show devoted entirely to wrestling. Brought to you by Rolling Ford and the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum on 1650 The Fan.
Welcome to On the Mat. I am Kyle Klingman of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum, joined by Irish Doug Van Gelder.
Now, where did you come up with the Irish?
It's the McDonald's.
Oh, no. No.
It's that you didn't go to McDonald's.
I'm not following into that. Yes. I did not go to McDonald's yesterday.
You didn't go to McDonald's?
No, even though you dropped the big bomb on me and made me think about it briefly, I did not go. And
I think the entire 1650 staff, I'm not really staff, but I come in here, I think they're really proud of you for that.
Really?
I think so. I mean, the only one we interact with is
Enough
Scott.
Of that. Enough of that.
Hey, come on.
Let's move on. Let's get to the important stuff.
This is important.
Yeah.
We're talking about human beings that we care about, and that's you.
Okay.
We can go on to other things, and I'm always fine with talking about the sport of wrestling, and I'm always fine talking with our guest today. We have Mark Ironside on the show. Always love having Mark on the program.
Well,
high energy.
You know my feelings about the guy.
Well, he's awesome.
Yeah, he is awesome, and he's my all-time favorite Hawkeye wrestler and host.
Yeah, he does a great job with Stephen Grace.
Took a team down there to Iowa, and he gave us the luxury tour.
Yep, he did a great job, and we get to break down the upcoming Iowa State meet, which will be Saturday at 7 p.m. at Carver Hawkeye Arena. Mark's going to talk to us about not only that, but we get a chance to talk about the entire season, what's coming up with a few of his athletes, and we might even get into some of his extracurricular activities, which, as you know, he races cars. So hopefully we get a chance to talk to him a little bit about that. Also have Zeke Jones on the program, Arizona State on the rise right now. It's fun when programs are making a positive trajectory, and Zeke Jones at Arizona State has a very important job in the sport of wrestling. What he's doing is critical work because
very
it's in the
important
West Coast.
rescue.
It is. There's no doubt about it.
Very important.
Well,
you've got to maintain that geographic area with some interest in the sport.
You really do, and that area is crucial to our survival in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to understand. California is just huge into wrestling. You know, they got one class. They go out. I mean, they look for a true state champion.
Yeah.
There's a lot to admire there, and there's a lot of wrestlers in California. Arizona's right next door. Provides the college opportunity for those California and other wrestlers. So
it's huge into wrestling, I think, in our minds because of what you just mentioned, that there's a one-class system and they have some outstanding talent that's coming out of there. I always go back to the 2004 Olympics where the first three Olympians were all from California. Just shows the depth that they have and that it's really hard to win 4 state championships in California. I think only 2 have done it so far, Darryl Vasquez, and I think there was one other after that. But it's a very important state for how we advance within the United States because it has a huge population and you have a lot of talent that comes out of there that's going to do great things. I mean, you look at you and I, Ryan Loader from California, and that was a pipeline when Penrith was there. He looked at those California athletes to come to the UNI program, and time again you see why California's
Stanford still have wrestling out there?
They do. Yeah, they do.
Who's the coach there now?
Jason Borelli.
Yep.
Okay. He's the head coach out there. They have some good guys, and I think, Doug, if you look up and down the lineup, I think that's the trend, and I think that's the one thing that when you look back at what Mark Manning did in those 3 years that he was at the University of Northern Iowa, what did he do? He brought in Tony Davis. And all you need is one guy that can electrify your program, not only emotionally, but just electrify them in the way they approach the sport. And Tony Davis did that. And when you have a guy that is a national contender and that is fighting for an NCAA championship, like a Joe Colon, even though he got third a couple years ago, that's exciting. One guy can change the program because then every guy is elevating themselves to that. And Gable brought up
Imar at Illinois.
Well, Imar at Illinois. Jaden Cox from
Missouri.
From Missouri.
Although he had a little help getting there with Ben Askren, but
Well, I mean, what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, Ben Askren was there before him.
Oh,
and he
sure.
was pulling a lot of attention into Missouri.
Yeah.
Jaden is from Missouri, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, he's right from that area in the Columbia area. And I think the more you can do that and it elevates your program, it gets people excited about it. Cale Sanderson, even though Iowa State has a great program, he
you
did
can't
that.
be excited about Missouri's program right now. You're no fan at all.
Yeah. It's
Jaden Cox, man, that's huge what he did this last year.
huge what he did, and then he was at the UNI Open and looked dominant, and you just see a guy that is so smooth and in a complete class by himself. And if you were one of the few that had a chance to watch the UNI Open and had the privilege to be part of that, you saw some great competition. You saw some great wrestling out of an Olympic bronze medalist in Jaden Cox, won easy, and then also Isaiah Martinez, who won easy but had a little bit of a scare against Daniel Lewis of Missouri. He was in a situation where he could have been pinned in a defensive fall. You could have said, hey, it looks close there, but then the official called a stalemate. I wish they would have let it go a little bit further. The Missouri fans were calling for that fall, of course, but it was awful close. It was awful close, and I call those a legacy call. I think that a lot of times you don't want to see someone's legacy get tarnished by calling a fall that could have gone either way. So he called a stalemate, went back to the center, and Imar dominated from there.
If it would have grabbed some time on the radio, it would have been worth it. Or, I mean, on TV. It would have been worth him getting pinned.
Well,
you know, that's the way I look at it anymore. You need adversity almost to draw any attention to anything. And if he could have been upset there, or maybe if Jaden Cox would have been upset, I mean, woo!
yeah,
Then you'd have heard about it.
yeah.
As it was, did anybody say anything about the UNI Open?
What, just in general, or
Yeah,
what?
on the TV station.
Oh, I think there was some buzz.
Was there some people
Flow
there?
Wrestling called it, and or they were there with cameras and had the matches. So I think when you have high caliber talent that's coming in and guys that you're excited to watch, I think that's good. I know going there for me, I was buzzing from it. The only thing that's hard about that is you just can't follow the storyline. You don't know which matches are finals or semifinals, and you all of a sudden Jaden Cox is wrestling and it happens to be the finals, but he's out of order because Imar's later. So it's hard to follow. It's more just kind of a practice tournament more than anything. But it was fun to watch those, and it really was fun to see Lujan at 174 pounds win it. He came out and was on fire. Got takedown near fall against a top 10 guy.
That's wild. He's from Georgia, correct?
Yeah.
Isn't that something? Another state that doesn't have any collegiate wrestling.
Yeah, it's amazing that there's a little bit of a pipeline there for UNI too from Georgia. But Lujan is the guy for me right now for UNI wrestling that I'm going to watch. He's my.
I'm in for Steyer.
Well, that's fine.
I like Steyer, yeah.
And that's great. I'm glad we both have two guys that we get to mention. That's good for the program that we get to talk about that. Now, Dylan Peters still has a place in my heart. I like his style, and I want to see him headhunt and go for those falls, which he does.
I love to watch him on the sidelines after he's done wrestling. He's out there urging his teammates on and really doing a great job of getting them ready.
Yeah,
he's matured
that's
to that position of leadership,
and that's a good thing. And we had Brian Smith on the show last week, and the one thing that I really give Missouri credit for, and you don't see this as much with wrestling, is that you saw that the Missouri team was more like a family. When Jaden Cox was wrestling or Daniel Lewis in that match against Isaiah Martinez, that entire team was around the mat watching, following, wanting to encourage their wrestler on. And that says a lot about the Missouri program and what they're doing. And I like the product that Brian Smith is doing, and I can't speak highly enough. Even when we had him on the show last week, it was so good and so refreshing to hear about where he wants to see the sport go. Not only is he a visionary, but he implements it. I think that's really important. Doug Schwab does some of those things too, where he goes to the student union, gives away wrestling T-shirts, engages with college students. You have to do that in the sport of wrestling because it's just not going to be the traditional marketing ploy to get people there. You really do have to build relationships with people. You really do have to know someone. You really do have to have that emotional connection to get someone to come to a wrestling dual meet. And you've seen that with high school wrestling. How many of those parents, when you were with your son, are still in the sport? They came because they had a son that wrestled, and then they're out.
Yeah.
Somehow we have to get them hooked again back in the college system.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure.
They'll be there when they're grandchildren.
Well,
but that's a big gap,
you know. It's a big gap. It is a big gap. But you think about even coming up here in a couple weeks. You have the Battle of Waterloo on the 16th and 17th at Young Arena. Great tournament, 32 teams. It seems like anyone that likes the sport could find a reason to get over there. But it's probably going to be parents and those close with the wrestlers. Maybe a few fans will come over to watch that, but it's pretty much a niche sport. And
yeah, I think I'm going to go over there and watch the Cresco team. I kind of touched base with Keith Slifka from up at Cresco, the coach up there, and at that Upper Iowa meet that we went to.
Yeah. That's right.
So I'm going to follow him up a little bit and see how they do.
Yeah, well, it's great that we have that opportunity. And I hope, this is my hope beyond hope, I hope that the Waterloo schools are not in that 8th place losers bracket like they were last year.
That was hard to take.
It is hard, and I'm not sure how they're going to come out of that. It's hard when you see Columbus. I think Columbus only has 10 guys out for wrestling, and I think they're only sliding in 4, 5, 6 guys in the varsity level. I know the Columbus Kids Club is hopefully getting some kids through there. We've talked about Waterloo East enough about what's coming on the horizon for them. Waterloo West is still in that rebuilding phase, but it is painful knowing how good the Waterloo school systems was, not only in wrestling but all sports, to see it go down that far. And
well, there's that youth level that used to be so dynamic. You know, with the Wahawk Club and the House of Pain. And even then we had, you know, when I was coaching in junior high, I mean, all those were great dual meets at that time. And it's just tapered off. I'd be surprised if you went to a high school wrestling meet here in the metro area and had 100 fans there.
And a lot of, yeah. And it's a different product than what it was back in those days. But there's some positives that we have going on. The Battle of Waterloo certainly is a positive, but the best positive is I think progress can be made, and I think it falls on Waterloo East at this point. Can they not be in that 8th place losers bracket with all the Waterloo schools? We'll see, and we'll follow that storyline pretty close, because I think it really does show a level of progress that you have. And hey, there was some great high school wrestling action over the weekend, and if you like the sport, again, all you have to do is be in this area, in the Waterloo Cedar Falls area, and you have the UNI Open. You had Hawkeye Nationals at Young Arena. You had the Keith Young Wrestling Tournament. You had the Independence Tournament with 25 teams, which was won by New Hampton. There was some outstanding wrestling that took place this past weekend that I hope we embrace and appreciate, because we really do have unlimited resources for the sport and what we get to watch. And I know that we continue to talk about wanting to get up and run a table at the Keith Young tournament. It's coming. We got to make this happen, Doug, one of these years. It has to be on the back mat, though, because we got to see you go nuts, and I want to see you be the towel boy.
I did not go nuts. I squared it away with the referee. I had him spellbound. He said, "How did you follow all that?" And I said, "It's correct. That's all you need to know." And that's the way it was.
I agree, but
I mean, that's legendary.
It is, but I'm talking about the time where you
right.
handled it. You handled it immaculate. Yeah, we were missing a towel boy, and then you kept hitting the buzzer, and you said, "Hey," and you almost barreled over the table, and you threw the towel at the ref. And it was great thinking on the spot. I appreciate what you were able to accomplish there, but I want that moment back, Doug. I want to recreate those feelings that we had.
I was more thrilled about when I set the referee straight on what happened.
You did, because he's
match.
like, okay.
I mean, that was a flurry of points that I could replay that match in my mind today yet.
And I think that was my fault, because I don't think I started the clock. There was one where I didn't, and that coach was not happy with me. And it takes a skill, man. It takes a skill to be over there. We have some great wrestling competition. We mentioned the Iowa State meet coming up this weekend. That's on Saturday. Also follow.
I wish that was a great competition.
What? Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how it ends up. There's some injuries on both sides. Right now, Corey Clark is injured at 133. Likely won't see him. We'll ask Mark Ironside
Downey,
about
is he
that.
hurt? Or is he just having a hard time making weight?
Oh, I know that he didn't wrestle at Vegas, so I don't know if he's hurt. Yeah, he was hurt. He did get banged up. I can't remember exactly what the injury was, but he's going to be out. I don't know what the timeline is. He might wrestle against Iowa. He might not. But I think early season duels like that's the norm. You have some backups, and why would you risk injury for the NCAA tournament for a dual meet? So that seems to be standard protocol. Also missing Sam Stoll at heavyweight, so we'll find out more from Mark about that particular weight class. And hey, UNI has a big duel against Wisconsin.
About Harrington, is he going to be in?
I don't know. I have no idea what the status is there. It's I think a lot of programs are tight-lipped about injuries and where they are. I haven't seen Harrington too much in the lineup, but not sure what they're going to do with that. Iowa, another great dual meet. UNI is going to wrestle Wisconsin this Sunday at noon. So get
in Madison.
In Madison. It's not that far away, 3 hours away. Get over there to check that out. Wartburg is still number one, but they're missing a couple guys in their lineup. Still missing a
couple guys that
Kenny
got
Martin.
beat.
A couple guys got beat, and a couple guys that haven't been in the lineup. Eric DeVos didn't wrestle over the weekend, but they won 3 dual meets, a couple close ones. Beat Olivet 20-15, won Stevens Point 42-9, and then won over UW Whitewater 28-16. Not the best performance we've seen out of Wartburg, but I think their lineup's going to be bolstered come second semester. And another.
Didn't they lose? Didn't a couple of their top seeded guys get beat?
They had a couple guys go down. They did, and I know for Wartburg that's not that's not what they want to see. They didn't have all of their starting lineup in over the course of that the dual meet series, but yeah. They still came out with wins, and I think they'll be solid coming into the second semester. Minute to go here. Just want to make sure we mention this. Oklahoma State's looking good right now. They've won their first 4 dual meets. They have of those dual meets, they've won.
Ranked number 1.
They're ranked number 1. I think they deserve that ranking right now, though I think Penn State's still going to win the NCAA tournament. I think they deserve to be the number 1 dual meet team in the nation. They crushed Oklahoma over the weekend. I try and make
Penn State number 1 now, just so they don't get angry about not being number 1.
Well, regardless, they beat Oklahoma 33-3 over the weekend, and then they beat Pittsburgh 39-0. So they've won 36-3, 34-3, and 33-3, and then 39-0.
That's Oklahoma State.
That's
right?
Oklahoma State. So they're looking pretty good right now.
Lost 3 out of 30 matches.
Yeah, 3 out of 40.
3 out of 40. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
wow.
That's pretty good, and a lot of times Oklahoma State starts slow, and they're missing Joseph Smith right now at 157, so we'll see how that transpires. Up next, we have your favorite wrestler, Mark Ironside, is next on the mat.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When all you want is sports, all you need is 1650 The Fan.
We are back on the mat, 1650 The Fan. I'm Kyle Klingman of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum, along with Doug Van Gelder. And Doug, you remember when Mark gave a little instruction at the University of Iowa at Carver
Mark
Hawkeye
is
Arena?
my all-time favorite Hawkeye wrestler.
That's awesome. He's a 2-time NCAA champion. You can hear him on KXIC as the voice of Iowa wrestling. Welcome, Mark.
How we doing, boys? And you just say that, Doug, because I'm on the line, but I appreciate it anyway.
He does. He says that, especially to the female wrestlers. He always tells that that's his favorite. So,
yep, I get it.
Yeah, you get how it works with Doug. You get how it works with Doug.
I'm being libeled here.
Hey, before we get into the season and some current stuff, I love the past. Gable was telling me about this the other day. He said the only time he had to smack you was when you were in that Jeff Bucher match in 1997 at the Unidome. You remember when he smacked you across the face?
Oh, yeah. I remember distinctly, clearly. It still stings.
Quarterfinals. What, did you need that? Did that help get you out of the funk?
Yeah, I think it helped. I think that, Bucher's the one that really kind of messed up, and, he kind of had some momentum going his way and got tired a little bit and took a timeout. Had he not taking that time out, I had kind of lost my composure. I was just so angry and upset and frustrated with the referee at the time that I was just wrestling and just doing some things I shouldn't have been doing and basically just giving points away. So kind of his own fault, that he ended up losing that match. Had he not called a timeout and allowed me to go over and get smacked around by Coach Gable, he possibly could have won that match.
1997, you guys set the all-time point record for the NCAA wrestling tournament, 170 points. It was Gable's last season as head wrestling coach. But during the season, it was a little bit up and down. It maybe wasn't the season you guys were hoping for. It gelled at the end there. But Gable credits you for helping him win the NCAA tournament in grand fashion and bringing the team around. He saw you after a practice after the Big Ten tournament where you said, "Coach, I'm tired." Do you remember how all that went down with that last few weeks of the season to get the team ready to make a record performance?
Well, I don't remember telling him that I was tired. I think he just saw the fatigue set in a little bit in a practice. It probably wasn't myself. I didn't have a very good practice. I specifically remember that practice. It was kind of an individual practice go. I think it wasn't just me. It was a lot of the guys on the team, but I think once he seen that I was pretty much overspent, that he knew it was kind of time to back off a little bit. And, Gable worked his magic. I remember that bus ride up to the Unidome, or to Wartburg to go to the hotel, the Heartland Inn there, and him reading a newspaper article to the team on the way up. And pretty much they had basically given the trophy to, it was out of the Des Moines Register, Dan McCool had written, and basically given the trophy to Oklahoma State, and the tournament hadn't even started yet. So there was a lot of, there was a lot of turnaround things. We had a lot of potential that we hadn't gotten to yet. We didn't have the best of the Big Tens. Joe Williams lost, at the Big Tens. Mike Mena lost at the Big Tens. Jesse Whitmer lost at the Big Tens. I think it might have been just Lincoln McRaven and I were the only two Big Ten champs possibly that year. And then we turn around and we have 5 national champs and 6 finalists. So, that's he got us ready at the right time, and I think that we all got ready and we knew it was Gable's last year and we wanted to do something special, and everybody got on board. Even a guy like Tony Ursuline, was an All-American that year and had a pretty darn good tournament, and it was just a lot of fun. It was just pin after pin after pin, and Casey Gillis kind of set the momentum that year with pinning Maldonado from Iowa State, and it was everybody just kind of caught fire from there.
On the line with Mark Ironside, 2-time NCAA champion for the University of Iowa. Also on KXIC, does the broadcast with Stephen Grace. And as we go into a big dual meet historically, maybe not as big right now because of Iowa State not having a great early part of the season. But as a wrestling fan, how are you kind of looking at this Iowa State meet coming up this Saturday?
Well, I think it's looking really good for the Hawkeyes, obviously. Iowa State just, for one reason or another, everybody has their opinions, and everybody can be, an armchair quarterback, as they say it, and point the blame at different places or whatever, and it just basically comes down to, Pollard over there and how important is the wrestling program to Iowa State. Obviously it just hasn't been very well for so many years now, and it's just a matter of do they just want they're going to settle for mediocrity and go with that, or they want a program that's going to compete and to try and be in the top 5, top 10 of the country every year. I think this dual meet will pretty much show you that Iowa's light years ahead of Iowa State right now, and as I think it's shown that they got beat by South Dakota State. And then we just thumped South Dakota State pretty good. But, we still have to go out and wrestle it, too. So I know that, Coach Tom Brandt does a really good job of letting the guys know that, you never take anybody for granted. And there's really never an easy match at the Division I college wrestling level. And so you got to go out and perform. It's our first opportunity to be in Carver Hawkeye Arena this year, except for if you want to count the Iowa State duels. But I don't really count that because the attendance isn't very good. It's during the middle of the day on a weekday. So I think the guys are really hungry and excited to get in the Carver Hawk Arena on a Saturday night and put on a really good performance.
What was the atmosphere like at the South Dakota State meet, the most recent dual meet you guys had?
I did not go to it. I did not make that trip. I had a lot. It's hard for me as a business owner to get away on a Thursday and a Friday from work. So I opted not to go on that trip, and Matt McDonough did the radio for me. But I got some updates from Stephen Grace as the meet was going on, and I was talking to Ryan Morningstar actually just last night about it, and it was pretty hostile environment. I mean, it's a nice gymnasium in there that it was chock full of people. They set a record for I think over 4,000 people. The record before that for attending wrestling meet was 1,800 people, so we more than doubled it. And that's just a testament, when the Iowa Hawkeyes come to town, what's going to happen. And everybody loves to, see Iowa get beat. But at the same time, they like to see them because they're one of the premier programs in the country. And, a lot of tradition there. But it was a good hostile environment. I know that. And I know that Ryan said towards the end of the meet there that they had their fans kind of right behind us in the band. And they had some certain people there kind of egging some of our guys on, and by the end of the meet, he can only take so much, and I think it started some jaw chewing or whatever. So, and that's what's great about the sport of wrestling is because you can get away with that. There's so much that you get away with in wrestling that you can't really get away with, say, in basketball or some other sports. I mean, wrestling is just, they let things go a little bit further than what they do in other sports, and it's kind of unique, and I hope that's the way it always continues to stay.
At 133, Corey Clark did not wrestle due to a shoulder injury. How's he doing?
I don't think that you'll see him on the mat tomorrow night against Iowa State. I think that it's a situation he could wrestle if he really wanted to. But I don't know this. This is just me, Mark Ironside talking out loud. I haven't talked to Coach Tom Brands or anything like that, but I think that, he could wrestle if he needed to. If it's a Big Ten championships tomorrow, he's wrestling. National championships, he's wrestling. Do we need him to win the dual meet? No. He really, by going out there, you risk, furthering an injury when it's healing along just fine. Then you're going to have a big, long break for Christmas. There's really no sense in throwing him out right now. So I'd be kind of surprised if we put him out there. But it's not like it's a life-threatening injury or season-ending injury or anything like that. So, but it would be fun to watch him wrestle Earl Hall. But at the same time, you have to respect a guy like Earl Hall, who is a senior, and he scrapped really hard with Corey Clark in the past, and you want to make sure that you're 100% ready to go against someone like that. And if you don't need to wrestle right now, then it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
We are on the mat with Mark Ironside. We are breaking down Iowa's upcoming season and what they have in the lineup. A guy that I'm excited to see that I haven't seen in an Iowa singlet yet is Michael Kemmer at 157 pounds. What can Iowa fans expect out of this guy?
I'll tell you what, he's one of my favorite guys on the team for sure, and he's a newcomer, and we're going to be extremely blessed to have him in the lineup for the next 4 years. There's no doubt about it. This kid, great head on his shoulders, just so positive all the time. Great student of the sport, great student in the academic world. He's just like a coach's dream. He goes in, he puts all kinds of time in, and he really takes a lot of pride, in his wrestling. He's very offensive. He's a great, student of the sport. Like I said, he learns, he listens to the coaches. He wants to improve every time out, and he's good in all positions. So you're definitely going to see him, throughout his career be very offensive, put a lot of points on the scoreboard. He's great on top. He's great on his feet. He's very long. He's very lanky. I compare him a little bit to Ryan Morningstar, where he's just got those go-go gadget arms where once he gets his fingertips on your legs, he can just suck you in. And not a knock on Ryan Morningstar, but he puts more points on the scoreboard than what Ryan Morningstar did. So, he's fun to watch. He's a lot of fun to watch, and I think he's going to become a crowd favorite really quick. And like I said too, when we watch him wrestle this year, I think the fans are going, "Oh my goodness, this is so cool." We got another 3 years after this to watch him wrestle. Yeah. So, knock on wood, stay healthy, and there's no issues there. How's
Sam Stoll at heavyweight doing? Are we going to see him in the lineup before the second semester?
I don't know. I think Midland it's similar to Corey Clark. I think that he could go right now if he really wanted to. Big Ten national time, he could go. It's a situation, do we really need him right now? No, we don't need him to win the Iowa State meet. I think it's a situation you probably see in Midland, maybe. Again, I don't want to speak for, Sam Stoll or Tom Brands and staff, but I think that you might see him at the Midland. I don't know if he'll wrestle an entire tournament there. maybe just get 2-3 matches in, and then I think for sure you'll start seeing him on the Big Ten road swing that starts a couple weeks after the Midlands when we go and we travel against Michigan and Michigan State.
All right, a guy that's not even in the lineup, but we got to get excited about him early. Spencer Lee's going to be coming in next season. Not sure if he'll redshirt, not sure if he'll wrestle right away, but who cares? We can get excited about this kid and what he can bring. What are you hearing about Spencer Lee? What are the Iowa wrestling fans saying about this kid, and what are your expectations out of him?
Well, his credentials speak for himself. 3-time junior world champion. I mean, he's won about everything there is to win, and he reminds me a little bit of Kemmer, and he's just so fun, so energetic, good head on his shoulders, positive kid, just fun to be around. I think that he just brings a lot of energy into the room, positive energy into the room, and that's what I'm looking forward to the most. And that's what you got to love about guys like Kemmer. The camaraderie that we have on the team this year is phenomenal. It's the best that we've had in a long time. I really, really, and that's not against anybody in the past, but I just really like how these guys are performing right now and wrestling as a team and feeding off each other, and they're just so positive. There's so many positive vibes right now, and I think that a guy like Spencer Lee is going to do nothing but add that to it. I mean, when you can start off your lineup like we're doing right now with Thomas Gilman, and then you can just start following suit with Spencer Lee, that's pretty nice when you know that you got a guy like that in there that can go out and put a lot of points on the scoreboard and do a lot of damage to get you started on the right foot.
We are on the line with Mark Ironside, 2-time NCAA wrestling champion for the University of Iowa. You can hear him on KXIC 800 AM for the Iowa broadcast. Mark, we asked all of our guests this, but I'm going to actually go a different route. I'm going to ask you 2 parts of this. I want Mark Ironside's wrestling Mount Rushmore, and I want Mark Ironside's NASCAR Mount Rushmore. Go ahead.
Wrestling Mount Rushmore?
Yep. And then you're a NASCAR guy, so I want your NASCAR Mount Rushmore.
So what do you want me to name, like, the best or, like, 4 or what?
Yeah, 4. And it can be whoever you want. It doesn't have to be the best. It's who you think should be on Mark Ironside's wrestling Mount Rushmore. So it could be, it could even be your high school wrestling coach, Dick Briggs.
Well, I think wrestling-wise, you for sure throw Dan Gable in there. You should for sure throw John Smith in there. You for sure throw Tom Brands in there. And then after that, I mean, you got a whole arsenal of people in there that could be, wavered any which way. It's hard for me to say that last one. It's, for me, it's just a hard decision after that. You could go Terry Brands. Obviously, people would argue you got to go Cale Sanderson, Lincoln McElravy. I think there's just so many great wrestlers. David Taylor, Kyle Daigle, Jordan Burroughs. I mean, it's hard to name a 4th for sure, but I think you for sure throw up those three that I did, and then you kind of flip a coin to the rest. As far as NASCAR goes, number 1 obviously is Dale Earnhardt. And then after that, you have Cale Yarbrough, and then you can throw Richard Petty into there. And then, as of late, it's kind of tough. I like a lot of the guys out there. I don't really have one particular guy kind of, right now that I'm cheering for in particular. I like a lot of them. So, but I'm kind of keen on Kevin Harvick. He's got a wrestling background. I like his mentality. I like the way that he drives. He's a competitor. So, probably go with Kevin Harvick route, even though he hasn't won a championship yet.
All right. And you do some racing. I think one of the things that Andy Hamilton and I wanted to know, and I want to just get this documented on air, can we come into the pit and watch you race on the track?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love that.
Anytime you guys want to come down on a Friday evening to Hawkeye Downs, feel free to come on out. I've been driving a Legend car for the last 4 years, and this year just moved up to the late model division. I got a really, really nice, cool Iowa Hawkeye race car now, late model car, so pretty much gold and black and decaled up with some cool sponsors, and it's a cool look. So it's another level for me. It's another stepping stone. It's going to be a learning year for sure, no doubt about it.
You're in the late models now?
Yeah, in the late models now.
Sweet.
Yep. So
awesome.
It's asphalt only, and someday, when I get time too, I want to go up, hit some other tracks, like Minnesota Elko and the Dells and stuff like that. But it's hard for me to find time to travel around too much just with my own daughters and being so involved in their activities in softball in the summertime. And I coach my 2 older daughters' teams, so I'm pretty busy with that as well, too. But it gives me an opportunity. The racing gives me an opportunity. I mean, heck, it's literally, a minute and a half, 2 minutes from my office to the track. So it's very convenient, and it gives me an opportunity to keep learning and competing in something new that interests me. And as you get older and you can't be on the mat all the time or very often, and it beats you up a little bit, this gives me, another opportunity to, keep that drive going, so to speak, that, those competitive juices inside.
All right, real quick, you have a great business, Ironside Apparel, Iowa 24/7, 365. How are things going down there in Cedar Rapids?
Things are going good. Obviously this is Christmas time, so, we're really bombarded right now with Christmas orders and wrestling season, high school wrestling team orders and stuff. The Iowa Hawkeye team's going to the Outback Bowl January 2nd down in Florida, playing the Florida Gators. We're going to be getting all the Outback merchandise in here on Thursday or Friday of this week. So should be a good Christmas season again, and it's also hunting season as well too. So there's never a dull moment, in my life ever. But this is for sure by far the busiest.
All right, we've been talking to Doug's favorite wrestler this week, Mark Ironside. He was a 2-time NCAA champion, and you can hear him on broadcasts on KXIC. Make sure to tune in to the Iowa State meet this weekend, 7 o'clock, 800 a.m. Thanks for joining us, Mark. We appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks a lot for having me on, and tell that Andy Hamilton hello for me. He's one of my favorite people.
All right, appreciate that. Up next, we have Arizona State's head wrestling coach, Zeke Jones, next on the mat.
Log on and listen online at 1650thefan.com, the online home of 1650 The Fan.
We are back on the mat, 1650 The Fan. I am Kyle Klingman of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum. Along with Doug Van Gelder, we have one of the most dynamic wrestlers the United States has ever produced. He was a world champion in 1991, Olympic silver medalist in 92, bronze medalist in 95. That one still bothers me because I think he got hosed in that match, but we can talk about that later. He's the head wrestling coach at Arizona State. Zeke Jones, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. Doug, appreciate it.
Hey, great to have you on. Iowa State this weekend. You had a brother that wrestled in that. What did that rivalry mean to you growing up?
Yeah, Johnny Jones, 1976-77, on the national championship team there. I remember going to the dual meet with Iowa, and it was in Hilton Coliseum, and I remember the Iowa people throwing a lot of things out on the mat in that duel.
I mean, that had to be a fun rivalry to watch growing up, especially knowing you had a brother competing in that. It probably wasn't in its heyday right then, but you probably saw signs of things to come.
Yeah, it was really a lot of fun. Johnny is 13 years older than me, so when he was wrestling in college for Iowa State on that championship team, I was just a kid, 5 years old, 8 years old, and my brother was my idol, and watching him compete for Iowa State was really an unbelievable thing as a youth. And then later, when I got to high school, my high school wrestling teacher and personal coach was a man named Ernie Gillum. Ernie was on a national championship team for Iowa State in 1965. And so I'm well-rooted in the Cyclone family between, my coach and my brother.
Did Patricia Miranda really beat up on you when you guys were in youth wrestling?
Nope. I never wrestled Patricia Miranda. She's too young.
Or no, not Patricia Miranda.
Saunders.
Yeah, Patricia Saunders. Yeah, I butchered that. But, yeah, did she really smoke you?
Okay. You were trying to get me.
I was trying to get you.
That's what you deserve.
You got me back.
Yeah, she was a hammer. We grew up together, same neighborhood, 4 streets down. Her brother wrestled at Michigan. Her other brother, Andy, wrestled here at Arizona State on our national championship team with me. Since we were 5 years old, we all grew up in the same neighborhood, wrestled together, and she won 5 world titles. She was a hammer, but when we were little kids, she has a box of gold medals, and I have a box of silver medals, and I owe a lot of that to her. She's awesome. It's funny now, we live in Phoenix, and we live in the same neighborhood in Ahwatukee and Phoenix, right behind South Mountain, so we seem to have always stayed in the same neighborhood, just different states.
Townsend Saunders was an Olympic silver medalist in 96. Do you get him involved with the program at all?
Oh, yeah. All our alumni have been great. The community support's been unbelievable. Of course, Townsend and I were teammates and wrestled at Arizona State together, and then, of course, with the U.S. program. And So, of course, we're a tight, knit community. We all love the sport. We want to see it grow, particularly here in the West. But, it's pretty simple. We want to see America continue to win medals, and Townsend's a big part of that.
On the mat with Zeke Jones, head wrestling coach at Arizona State. You got there after being the national team's coach for a freestyle program at USA Wrestling. You glad you made that move?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the opportunity to come to Arizona State was, dream come true. Of course, coaching, the U.S. Olympic team is certainly an honor and a privilege and a hell of a responsibility, and I enjoyed it tremendously. And, I think in the short time, it was 6 years, but heading into that first cycle, I think we made a lot of improvements. It was a lot of fun. And really just take all that experience of coaching the best wrestlers in the world and bring it here to Arizona State has really been a lot of fun and, the next chapter.
One of the things I remember about you, Zeke, is you always knew how to play to the crowd when you wrestled, especially internationally. You understood the dynamic. You knew how to interact with the crowd. Is that something you can teach to guys? Is that something you can say, hey, you got to really be more aware of the crowd and utilize them to your advantage?
Well, I mean, maybe as a wrestler, it was just being excited and wrestling and getting hyped up with the crowd, being a part of what they're doing. Now as a wrestling coach, it really turns more to the business side, marketing, ensuring that, we're selling season tickets and having people in the arena and ensuring they're having a good product, which is getting our hand raised. But it's the full experience, from in the gate to out the door. It's a lot of fun, but there's nothing like getting revved up with a crowd. You're in a position where you're in a match where it's really close. And as you know, and I know, the fans can be the key difference in getting you over the top. And, you just love having that support from the crowd. That's what's fun about it.
The Valencia brothers, guys that I think the nation is excited to watch and see their development. You get to watch them on a daily basis. What are they going to bring to the sport that's unique? Well, I mean, they're competitors. And they're a great family, good kids, extremely competitive. They throw kitchen sink. They've got, Anthony's got moves no one's ever really seen before. And they get after it, and they wear their heart on their sleeves. I've had a lot of people say, yeah, Zahid's good. I love Anthony because Anthony will, when he loses, he doesn't like it and it hurts. And I think sometimes we can identify with people who are very successful. And then when they get knocked down, we identify with that. But Anthony gets back up and he dusts himself off and he gets out there the next week. Zahid, as you see, he's got the gift. And Anthony too, but Zahid specifically, right? I mean, you can see he's got the gift. The only person who really beats Zahid right now is Zahid himself. And, like anything, he's got to continue to progress and grow. He hasn't won the gold medal yet, so does he have wrestling to learn? Certainly. But you can see his trajectory, and both of them, they're on a great path, and, they just got to continue to get better. Do they have some good scraps in practice? Yeah, for against sure. Against each other, I mean. Oh, absolutely. Oh, they get fired up. They 99% of the time they work together well. Every once in a while, you got to split them up. Now, as far as building that family, you talked about the Arizona State family. How do you get that extended so that more people are coming to dual meets? Well, it's a community effort. No one wins this thing by themselves, not the coach, not the athletes. If you're going to be successful, you got to have a strong wrestling community supporting your program, being around it. And for them to support it and be around it, you got to have a place for them to get involved. Where can they touch the program? Where can they meet the athletes, the coaches? Besides just watching them compete. One thing is watching them compete and love and watching them wrestle and win, and they're exciting. But also, too, most people don't just want to do that. I say most. A good community gets involved. They come out to social events where they can meet the team and the athletes, come to practice. And so we find a place where everyone can be involved. We make sure they're updated and know what's going on in the program. We keep them connected. And, this area, as you know, here in Phoenix, Arizona, it probably has more world and Olympic medalists walking in this city than most cities. And it's because you had 25 years of successful sun-kissed wrestling. James Johnson, Tricia Saunders, Townsend Saunders, the list goes on of the people that have impacted the program and continue to still live here, many All-Americans and national champions. And so
really takes a community of people, and they want to see it be successful, and they want it to grow. They want it to be back the way it used to be.
Well, the way it used to be, 1988, you guys won the NCAA tournament. I believe there was a 4-year stretch where Arizona State actually placed ahead of the University of Iowa in 4 straight NCAA wrestling tournaments. And I know you don't want to go backwards, but as you look forward, what can you take as a blueprint from what Bobby Douglas did in 1988 and apply it to what you're trying to do right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, it all starts with developing the athlete, getting the right athlete in your program and grooming him, developing him. And I think we're in that place where we're attracting the best wrestlers in the country who really want to be the best in the world. And to do that, there's only a few places in the country or coaches that have that unique experience of being able to put guys on top of the NCAA and the Olympic podium. But it also, it's drilling down to what do the best wrestlers in the country and the world do, technically, strategically, tactically, and then knowing your athlete and applying, those things to that specific wrestler. And it's a lot of work. It's 11 workouts a week. If you're not doing the work, you can't get there. And, it's a brick at a time. And, having grit and being long-sighted, understanding that, it takes time to develop that finished product and getting somebody on top of the podium. And Bobby was an expert at it. His wrestling IQ was off the chart. He understands, how to get someone there, both technically, physically, mentally,
On the mat with Zeke Jones, head wrestling coach at Arizona State, was also the national team's coach for USA Wrestling. Let's look at international wrestling. Bill Zadek is the guy right now that is in the position that you had a few years ago. You like the choice of Bill Zadek leading our Team USA Freestyle?
Oh, absolutely. He's excellent. He was, when I took the job at USA Wrestling, what was that, 08, right after Beijing, Bill and Brandon were the guys I hired. And Bill, growing up in the training center after college, and moving to the training center, he'd been a training center athlete forever. So nobody knew the system as well as him. And then becoming the developmental coach, coaching all these young kids who are now senior athletes like Kyle. We brought Kyle to the Olympic Training Center when he was in high school. Bill was a development coach. I was coaching the national team. Kyle lived there through that cycle. So Bill understood not only the system developmentally, he brought these athletes up to now where they're senior athletes. And 2, he's been all over the world a million times. He knows where the best tournaments, the best training camps, the best wrestlers are, what regions are putting out the best athletes. And so it doesn't take 2 years to figure the job out. Bill already knows it. So he's just got to apply it, and, he's got to hold to his principles and work the athletes and hold them accountable. That's always the hardest part of the job, is making sure they do the right thing. Even when, it's getting them out of their comfort zone, because, the World Championships aren't in the United States. You got to go overseas to do it most often. And, he knows the system and how to do it.
We had you on the show 4 years ago, right after the 2012 Olympics, where the United States had 2 gold medalists and a bronze medalist on the freestyle side, which you were leading. Dan Gable gave you a grade of a B+ for that particular tournament, which was pretty high grade given Dan Gable's legacy and what how hard he grades. Your turn to grade the 2016 performance. You had a gold medalist and Kyle Snyder and Jaden Cox bronze, and then 4 guys did not place. How would you rate the 2016 performance in Rio?
I think it was good. I think there were some mistakes that were made on the map that really shouldn't happen. However, to have a gold medalist is key, especially when you don't have as many weight classes anymore. I do think the team, needs to improve. And I do think they're in position. I think the beginning of the cycle, it was teed up. I think the end of the cycle, I think we all wanted a little more in terms of the medal count overall. I think freestyle pulled most of their weight. And I do think this group is on its way and can perform at a really high level. I think overall the medal count was low for the U.S., right? So that's really more of a Rich Bender question and figuring out how to increase the medal count. But, I think, in London, it was a tremendous experience. We were 2 points out of first place, and I think after Kudakov's, dilemma, unofficially, we would be in that team championship spot, but he kept the medal. But I think America's at a place where it's very difficult to be the best team in the world. but can it be done? Absolutely. Yeah, Gable's a hard critic, and I think he always keeps those grades low to always keep you striving. And, that's why his athletes always performed well, right? Because he always made sure there was room to be better.
On the mat with Zeke Jones, head wrestling coach at Arizona State. We got to close this segment out, but I want to make sure we get this in for you. We always ask our guests, who would your wrestling Mount Rushmore be? What would that look like for you, Zeke?
Boy, that's a big one. I would put the two people that impacted my wrestling most in my life, because it's my Rushmore, right?
Correct.
So I put Ernie Gillum and Johnny Jones right there.
Okay.
Then, I mean, how could you not have John Smith on it, right? And then I may even put Valentin Jordanov on there, too.
All right. I think being local here, I think Brad Penrith is going to be crushed that you didn't put his face on there, but we'll have to break the news to him somehow, Zeke.
That's all right. We'll chisel out another face right next to one of those guys and put Brad on there. I love that guy.
Yeah, we'll put that on. Hey, thanks for joining us. I know it's a busy time of the year for you, but it's been fun to see the Sun Devil Wrestling program on the rise, and you're the reason why, and getting it back on track. And it's fun to see your results increase by the dual meet.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on, guys. You have a good day.
All right, we appreciate that.
Thanks,
Zeke
Zeke.
Jones, head wrestling coach, Arizona State. And as we mentioned, Doug, there's a guy that really important to what the trends are with the United States, not only internationally, but collegiately. So he has a wealth of experience.
I wonder what the high school wrestling looks like out there in Arizona.
Well, I think it's pretty good. I think you've seen a lot of the good kids coming to Arizona State program, and I think there's some good kids. I don't think it's the level of a Pennsylvania, but I think they get some decent guys through the high school program. We've had a great show for Doug Van Gelder, Mark Ironside, and Zeke Jones. I'm Kyle Klingman. You've been listening to On the Mat.
You've been listening to On the Mat, the Cedar Valley's longest-running radio show devoted entirely to wrestling. Brought to you by Rolling Ford and the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum on 16.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.